Okay, so today I'm here with Victoria again to do our fun tips about what to teach tomorrow in your music class, or today, or whenever you are teaching next when you are listening to this. And today we are talking about fan favorites, picture books in the music classroom. This is something that I think has gained a lot of steam in the last few years, and rightfully so, just because, using books in the music room is a great way to not only integrate what's happening in the general classroom, grade level classroom, with what's happening in your music class, but also, if we think about music like language learning and using picture books as kind of a an addition to all of that, right? So we're teaching music like language and using books, and there's just so many different applications. But today we're actually going to talk about specific books that you can use in your classroom, and some activities to go along with them. Anything you want to add, Victoria, before we
Yeah,
hop in?
I like what you said about linking it to general education and the idea of music as a language. The other thing that I would yes, and on top of that is I have a feeling that both of our books today are going to be kind of younger grades focused. Is that true about yours? Yeah, it's true about mine as well. But since we are both talking about kind of a younger grades focus, again, because like we always like this idea of starting at the foundation and then building up from there. But certainly something that's important to note is fifth graders will go for a picture book. If you find the right picture book, fifth graders will absolutely do this. I did a picture book thing with fifth grade, not last week. I guess it was the week before last, with fourth and fifth grade. And they were like quiet, attentive. We didn't finish the book in that lesson. I was like, we're not going to finish it. And they were like, what? You're not finishing the book? Right. So just to say, what we're doing in this conversation is going to be kind of younger grades, but picture books are not just for little kids. Upper elementary really goes for picture books as well.
Right, cool. Yeah, so let's go ahead and jump on in. So what I have to share with you today is a book called And Away We Go. It is not found on Epic Books. I could have sworn it was. I found it at a Lakeshore Learning, I want to say, but you can find it on Amazon. There's a Kindle version, all that good stuff. And it's by the author Migy. I believe I'm pronouncing that correct, just like one name, like Cher. So Migy. He is a British writer, illustrator, letterer. Lots of cool books and things on their site too that you can go check out. A lot of like folk tales, like Red Riding Hood, that type of stuff. Beautiful illustration. So the reason that I picked it up at Lakeshore was because I was like, oh, first of all, like I love the pictures. Like I just collect books because I'm a nerd. And I opened it up and I noticed that on every other page, it has the words "and away we go." And the story is about Mr. Fox who wants to go to the moon, and he has a hot air balloon to do so. So if you're watching the video, you can kind of see here. So it has lots of hot air balloons, and all of his friends along the way want to jump in. And every time somebody jumps in, we say "and away we go." Right? So since there's that sort of prompt, I thought, well, this is the perfect opportunity for a vocal exploration. So the first time I read this book with my usually kinder first kids, I'll ask them to put a hot air balloon kind of on the tip of their finger. And if we read the first page, special delivery for Mr. Fox. Hooray, my balloon is here, said Mr. Fox. Now I can fly to the moon. Away I go. And then my turn first. Here goes my hot air balloon. Woo, 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 woo. And then the kids echo. Woo, 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 woo. Yeah. And then keep reading. And every time away we go, my turn first, kind of an echo imitation with different vocal explorations. Yeah. And then as we go on, of course, we never just do something once in our classrooms. So the next time I read this book, I actually have some die cut hot air balloons. And so they actually have something physical that they can hold on to that I've laminated. You could find just some clip art to do with that. And so then they have something tangible.
Yeah.
I've also taken just some projected vocal explorations up on the board. So then it's just up to them to see it and translate that into higher versus lower pitches for contour and vocal exploration. And then I think something fun to do too, especially if they're holding like their hot air balloon, is to do it through space. So we've talked about this with our movement stuff before. So maybe after we've read this a couple times and they're familiar with like what the RLQ is with away we go, this time, instead of just sitting on our square or whatever with our finger hot air balloon, we actually have our hot air balloon and we're going to move across space with a pathway on the floor that matches our vocal exploration. And so what that would look like is me saying, and away we go. And then everybody using it with their voice. So still that same woo, woo, woo. And then when they hear a ting or some other aural cue, then they get to move that through space as I'm saying it or they're saying it or whatever. And then when they stop, I know it's time for me to read the next page. So yeah, so just a lot of really fun ways. I love how it has to do with like floating up in the air and, you know, hot air balloons. And so you have kind of that natural, just it lends itself to vocal exploration just because of the subject matter. But because there's that repetitive, like every other page with the addition of every friend, there's an away we go, like it happens continuously. And so there's lots of opportunities for switching things up and differentiation. And then once they've heard it once, we can kind of layer things on and make it a more expansive vocal and movement exploration activity as well. So they can tie those things together. So yeah, super simple, super cute. Love it. Kids love it. It's a fun book. So
I love that. I love that so much. And I can see how couple things. One possible iteration of this that I could imagine is if instead of just vocal exploration, if you wanted to do high and low stuff, still with an ooh or a neutral syllable, but like maybe the balloon is going ooh, right through the clouds, whatever, open space, blah, blah, blah. Talk to me more about the movement through open space, because this is something, to your point, you talk about this a lot, like self space and shared space, and like you're a big movement person. So when so when kids are doing their movement, you said they're doing it on the floor in front of them. Yes. Would there ever be a world where you would have someone like physically get up and move through space?
Yeah, so that's exactly what I'm talking about. So say that we've read this story and they've done some echo imitation with me with vocal exploration. The next time they're still sitting in self-space, they're still doing it. Maybe you have them stand up and do just kind of some non-locomotor leveling type things with their hot air balloon, right? Because and the reason I keep bringing up like an actual tangible hot air balloon, it doesn't have to be like a printed one. It could be a scarf. It could be whatever you decide is a hot air balloon that day. That's helpful for kids who otherwise feel just like totally blocked off with any kind of movement. If you have a manipulative, then they're moving that instead of themselves being the thing that's going through time and space, right? So if they do that with their feet kind of planted, and then the idea is that they have to think even more so about contour. If that up and down around type of movement they can picture on the floor and then their bodies are moving. It feels very abstract unless we've done the other two steps before. Right. Yes. So if you can kind of just envision it on the floor, and maybe it would require more echo imitation where, you know, as a teacher, I would go, woo, woo, woo. Now my feet are going to do that. I wonder what that would look like. And then I show them kind of like that spinny, like moving from one direction to the next. And then they can echo that. Right. And then that gets into something that feels like, you know, we've been talking about divergent and convergent a lot. I think that gets into something that feels like very convergent thinking in terms of like, well, they need to do exactly what I did, but their interpretation of it could look different. And that's okay. And that's good. Right. So yeah, I hope that answers your question. But yeah,
I just wasn't
through space. Yeah.
I love that. I love that so much. Yeah, I wasn't sure if I was imagining 25 hot air balloons moving all around the room at the same time, or if I was imagining 25 hot air balloons kind of like in their own spot, but moving up and down to the melodic contour, because I can see both of those being really, really beautiful. I love the scaffolds to this activity. I love that. I bet kids just freak out, love this activity.
Yeah, it's super fun. And it feels safe, especially like that RLQ piece is huge. Like if they're not sitting in their spot and like moving like just their voices in their hand or whatever, if you have like just a triangle, again, that's just like ting, it's their time to move, and then ting, their movement needs to stop. That's a big deal too. That's something that really helps kids to be successful. Excuse me.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Cool. That's it. Super chill.
Beautiful. Okay, so let's do, mine is a nice complement to that, and I'm going to share my screen here. Can you see this?
Yes.
Okay, I have winter, winter, cold, and snow. And Anne, you have not seen me do this activity, but this is like if I were not me and I were you, this is an activity that you would come up with. This is such an
this
Anne.
is fun.
This is such an and thing to do. You're going to hear this and be like, oh yeah, I've already done that, even though I've never done that. Okay, here we go. Winter, winter, cold and snow. This is a nice one to do because it is getting cold, and you have a lot of snow and I don't have
Oh my
any
gosh.
snow.
So
But
much snow.
if I had snow, this would be very nice. So this can be an appropriate thing, friends. Just whoever's listening. This is on Epic Books, and we'll put the link in the show notes. So if you want to drag and drop this activity, you can literally do this tomorrow. Okay, winter, winter, cold and snow. Chickadee, chickadee, who do you know? I know Bear asleep in her den. She might wake up when the sun shines in. She might wake up when the sun shines in. Winter, winter, cold and snow. Bear, bear, who do you know? I know Beaver under the ice, swims to his lodge so cozy and nice, swims to his lodge so cozy and nice. Winter, winter, cold and snow. Beaver, beaver, who do you know? I know Deer munching twigs from a tree, alert and quiet as he can be, alert and quiet as he can be. Okay, so you get the flow of this. It's a very calm, very peaceful activity. Much like you, and I am really drawn to these illustrations. I love the artwork in this. Very repetitive. So the first time through, that's the whole shebang. We're just going through, and you'll notice that we added one little echo component of it. Keeps very still and out of sight. Keeps very still and out of sight. So the next time through, we have several animals that we have talked about. Do you remember any of them? And kids will remember some. They won't remember some. It's all good. I remember a bear. I remember a beaver. I remember a deer. Great. Let's hang on to those. Will you be my echo when I motion to you? Here we go. Winter, winter, cold and snow. Chickadee, chickadee, who do you know? I know Bear asleep in her den. She might wake up when the sun shines in. She might wake up when the sun shines in. My turn. Chickadee, chickadee, bear. Bear, your turn.
Chickadee, chickadee, bear, bear.
Winter, winter, cold and snow. Bear, bear, who do you know? I know Beaver under the ice, swims to his lodge so cozy and nice. Swims to his lodge so cozy and nice. Bear, beaver, bear, beaver.
Bear, beaver, bear, beaver.
And we can keep going through like a couple, we would do more than one in between each page, but beaver, 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 bear.
Beaver, 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 bear.
Yes. So along the lines of silly, silly, simple, like ridiculously simple, that is what this is as well. So we're just taking animals that we see, and the teacher is speaking a combination of animal names, and the students echo. And then you already know, because this is an activity that you would do, and you already know that the next step is that I'm going to say deer, rabbit, rabbit, deer. And do you want to guess what your job is going to be, Anne?
Ta, ti, 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 ta.
Good. So we can derive some of these rhythms. One thing that we can do before that is I say a combination of animals and you mix up the animal pattern. So if I say deer, deer, rabbit, rabbit, one appropriate response from you could be, go ahead. Sorry, I interrupted you.
Rabbit, deer, rabbit, deer.
Good. Absolutely. And even though, we have like the chickadee at the beginning, takadee, or what would you say? Tickatee.
Yeah, tickatee.
That's fine. That's just not something that we'll derive. The rest of them, bear, beaver, deer, rabbit, all of these we can move from sounds to sounds on a beat. And since the book is so rhythmic the whole time, it's a very seamless transition from the mixing up the animal names to deriving the rhythms, or the rhythms first and then mixing up the animal names. Okay, so that is it. That is winter, winter, cold, and snow.
Yeah, I love it. I love that how it has that direct application where not only can kids do some improvisation stuff, right? That's like a really good way to introduce improv for little kids, right? So if they're echoing and then they have just kind of this different context that doesn't feel abstract because you've read them the book. So then to just say, oh, but say a different combination than me, like they've already been thinking about all these animals, so it's going to feel very natural to hop in and do that. So I love how that just feels like such a accessible extension for kids. Yeah, that's great. Cool.
Great. So today, what I thought that we were going to do is both of us would bring singing books, and we would say, like, these are my favorite books to sing, right? And then it turns out that neither of us brought a singing book. We brought a book that was it's not marketed as a, I don't know, like I'm thinking about like those beautiful Fire Robin books that you sing at the end of class. Neither of these are marketed to elementary general music teachers as a singing book that is, directly applicable to the music classroom. But thinking about phrases, away we go. What does that look like? What does it sound like? How does it feel in our bodies for away we go? And then if there's any sort of repetitive, rhythmic thing that students can take and turn around, like in winter, winter, cold and snow, then that's a great option as well. So I think what I love about this avenue, and to your point, the reason it's picked up so much steam, and I think it will just continue to pick up more and more steam, is that the possibilities are absolutely endless. And then when you hand them over to students, they become even more and more endless, because you're taking whatever was in your brain as one single person, and then you fan it out to 25 kids, and then it just kind of expands and expands from there.
Yeah, I was having the same thought as you about like books that you sing, because even if you're not buying like a marketed singing story book from West Music or whatever, there's a lot of books that you can find. Like I remember when I lived in Dallas, I would go to the huge half price books on Northwest Highway, and if anybody lives there, they know exactly what I'm talking about. And I would just scour the kids section, because there'd be so many books that are singable, that are like piggyback songs, right, that you wouldn't expect. Like I found one at the aquarium in Seattle that is a Pacific Northwest lullaby, and it's to hush little baby, but it doesn't exclusively say that. And I don't know if like somebody who maybe isn't always doing this kind of work wouldn't necessarily pick up on that. Hopefully they would, because it's there. But there's a lot of books like that can fit into a melody too, to sing a story, even if it's not necessarily like one of the Fire Robin books or one of the Trapani books, right, that we know all of those folks on. So I love that. I also love this idea that even if we're bringing in an outside source, there's still these opportunities for different modes of making music, right? So we're talking about like vocal exploration, yes, but we're also talking about movement, we're talking about speech, and then like you could transfer your activity if they've made their own animal patterns, like into body percussion and rhythm instruments. There's always an opportunity to keep going further. So I think that that's a really cool part about bringing something that feels like a book that necessarily wouldn't exist in the music room, bringing that outside world kind of in, and adds to everything that's happening at your campus, really. So yeah, good stuff.
Great.